last Sunday of the year, right? I like to look back. I like to look back at all that God's done, His faithfulness to us, and I like to look back and just see the power in what God's done. And this message is going to be a little different, okay? So just go with me, okay? We got it, Addie? We're good? Addie's like, don't look at me, don't talk to me, it's great, I'm sorry. So, in that, I want to say, most of you guys have heard the story, you've been on the journey with us, but I want to rewind back to December 22nd, 2022. Now, for most of us, that's just a normal day. For most of us, that's a day that we just kind of like, oh, Christmas is coming, let's get ready for it. You know, we got to bake cookies, make the cake, we got to get ready. For our family, we loaded up in my truck, pulling this trailer full of our stuff, and we drove from Iowa to Michigan. December 22nd, 2022, it was interesting for us because that was our official start to move back home. It was officially when we decided, okay, we know we're going back to Michigan, let's get moving. 13 hours in that truck with a 6'1" son in the back seat. You can imagine, there was a lot of complaining. So we left Rockwell City, Iowa. We headed towards Bay City, Michigan to spend Christmas with Miranda's family. And it was an interesting drive for Miranda and I. This drive for us signified our faith. It was okay, God, we're taking a step or a leap of faith. Because up to this moment, we didn't know where we were going to end up. We didn't know if it would be Rockford, Michigan. We didn't know if it would be Cadillac, Michigan, or Walkerville, Michigan. But we knew it was Michigan. And we walked and we drove through, all the states. And we're coming to Michigan and we're like, whew, we're home. On the drive, Miranda and I were talking about what would be the perfect fit for our families. One, because I love you all, but my family comes first. And what did we need as a family? Where would that be? And we talked about what each one would have. You see, we had three options. A youth pastor position, an associate pastor position that eventually would take over the church. And then we had heard about this Jim Ghoulish guy who was like, hey, I want to plant church in Cadillac. You should come and talk with us. And we're like, Cadillac's nice, but there's a lot of snow in Cadillac. I see I was wrong. So we were like, okay, God, we'll walk with you. And we just continue to walk this line. And on this drive, there was a lot of conversation about what we need. You see, we had just gotten out of a church plant in Iowa, in the middle of cornfields and beans, which is beautiful most of the year. But around fall and harvest time, they got these nasty corn bugs. And they peed on you, and it hurt really, really bad. So in the fall, when you want the windows open and hang out, you can't go outside. So we're like, man, we're glad we're leaving that behind. But it was interesting because for us, in ministry, while we had some good friends in that area, we felt very isolated, very alone. And we craved a support system. People willing to come along with us on a journey. People who would walk alongside of us. So this theme of Cadillac, while we didn't want to jump into a church plant again, because let's be real here, church plants are hard. Church plants take time. You all know that. We're living it, right? Church plants are tough. We said, okay, God, if that's where you want us, we're going to go. As we drove, we talked about all these things. Well, the perks of each one. The perks of taking over established church in Walkerville, Michigan, hopefully. That's kind of a cool gig. We don't mind that. The perks of youth ministry, because Miranda and I know youth ministry like the back of our hand. It's easy. It's comfortable. Like, we can do youth ministry really, really well. And we've had success in it. So we just talked about it. We prayed. As we crossed that state line, I'll never forget just praying in my truck, God, may your favor be upon us. May it be a clear, open and shut doors. Now fast forward with me to December 28th. So up to this point, Miranda and I have interviewed in Rockford, Michigan for the youth pastor position. We kind of left it going like, I think it went well. We can see ourselves here. Some weird things there, like the office would be in a closet. But okay, I can make it a closet work. Maybe. December 28th, we drove over from Bay City area over here to Dighton Wesleyan Church to visit with Pastor Jim and Nolan. Now, we got to hear Jim's heart for Dighton, for the people of Dighton, for the people of Cadillac, for just everything, his heart for church planting. And then we kind of looked at each other on the drive over to Cadillac to actually go eat Mexican food, which obviously you all know me, I love food. And Mary and I were just talking, like, this dude seems kind of cool. Like, we'll see his wife is like. I mean, she's not here today, so it's great. And but we're like, we'll see what his wife's like. I mean, maybe we can get along with him. I don't know. Jim seems pretty down to earth. So it's Cadillac for us. We're like, okay, well, how long is it from her family to my family? Oh, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from her family, an hour and a half, 2 hours from mine. Oh, okay, it's central. We can make it work. But we weren't sold on this new church. We met with Jim and Rachel over lunch, and it was very clear that God had called those two people to Dighton to start something new, to encourage people in church planting and to make Dighton this church planting hub. Now, we left Michigan scratching our heads going, okay, God, what are you going to do? We ended up not taking the interview in Walkerville. We decided that wasn't best for our family because the nearest Walmart was 30 minutes away, if not farther, and when I'm cooking, I often forget ingredients, so I have to go get them really quick. So we had two options: Rockford, Michigan, comfort, convenient, easy. Cadillac, Michigan, huge faith structure, nothing's guaranteed. All these what ifs. And to be honest with you, I didn't know anybody besides Jim and Rachel. I'm like, okay, they're cool about it, like they're excited about it. They say they're people. Like, what if we don't like the people? Just being real. What if we don't like the people that they're coming with us? Like, whew, that could be fun. January I came back and I had the opportunity to walk through church planting boot camp with the district. Church planting boot camp is just what it sounds like. They tell you everything church planting. They give you a book about this big, and they say, okay, in 2 days we're going to walk through the whole book, and good luck. You have to read it all after. And I'm like, that's a lot of information. I still haven't opened the book after. And just being honest. I mean, I did that. I did open it when we did the proposal. A lot weighing on that one. So I drove home, and so I got back church planting boot camp. I was seeing my brother. And through that, I had a phone call from Rockford, Michigan. I'm like, this is it, our answer. Hey, we decided to go a different direction. God, you stink. Like, really? Convenient. Like, the boot camp I came to rule out Cadillac. Not trying to like y'all, because I'm like, Rockford, it's close to my family. I like Rockford. It's a nice area. There's a lot of bougie things there. I want to live a bougie life. I come from the cornfield of Iowa. It's going to be fun, right? And then we looked at houses and we're like, okay, maybe Cadillac is more realistic, because Rockford is really expensive. Like, whew, okay, halfway my price range. Iowa is like $100,000 less for houses, for the same house. It's crazy, right? So then I called Jim, and the next day, so that was in between day 1 and 2 of the boot camp. Next day I show up to the boot camp. I'm like, okay, God, if this is what you want, you have to show me completely. Because at this point, Cadillac's the only option left, but I'm still not sold on it. Continued on through that boot camp that day, and it became evident and very clear that that's where God was leading us. To here at Cadillac, Michigan, to start a church. So, like everybody does, because I'm like, well, now it's January. We want to move Christmas, and so we're a month late. And, okay, well, I guess we'll drive to Cadillac and look at a house. So look at a house quick, bought the house. The rest is history, right? End of February came, and we started the move officially from Michigan, or from Iowa to Michigan. We moved in February, early March. And to me, what was great is upon arrival, we had people sitting at the house waiting to help us unload. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that's awesome. Okay, God, you've led us here. One of the biggest concerns is we were lonely in Iowa, and it was tough on our family. It's tough on ministry. Those that have ever done ministry or been in leadership, you know it's tough when you're isolated and you feel alone. So to be greeted by people and to see the support that came from Dighton was like, okay, maybe we can do this thing. But God, you still got to show up. Over the next few months, we were praying and just asking God what He had for Cadillac, what His will is. To be honest with you, we didn't know that he had people who were the people who were willing to take the step of faith. People who were born and raised in the church. People who grew up in this church. People who really didn't know us. People who looked at this young family coming in from Iowa and said, I think I can follow. Through meetings and meetings, I just kept praying, God, may your will be done. May your will be done. Matthew 6:10. Father, we want it to be all about you. This church, this move, all about you. And I'll tell you what, over this last year, we've continued to see God's will be done. For us, for the people that we encounter, for the church. Over the summer, we had the opportunity to do a couple meetings as a group. I was encouraged by them. We got to hang out, right? We got to do our first baptism as a church. We got to see people at the call to all. Like, that was cool to see that many people there. And then we fast forward to September 17th. When we showed up and we had a great time of worship here. And it was the official start of Reed Church as a whole. It's the official start, September 17th. Not about you, but through these last couple months, I've been able to see God's faithfulness in His hand in all these little things. We talk about the little things at Christmas. We talk about the little things, right? The little things that we've done. The tailgates, when we may have only talked to one person. When everything else, people are walking by us and they're like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want any free hot dogs. They look rubbery. Or we have people who are like, that's cool. I already have a church, and they just kind of keep walking. The tailgates, which, to be honest with you, sometimes are challenging, right? It was awkward. Standing by the lake, waiting for people to come, like, nobody's showing up. But then the homecoming parade happened, and for those that were there, it was awesome. Michigan State Police partnered with us on this tailgate. They had their big tent set up. Homecoming parade comes right down past us. Afterwards, people are walking by the thing. We're giving out hot dogs fast so we can cook them. And it's like, yes, God, finally, we have people. I love people, right? And then we fast forward to the trick-or-treating, which took us all by surprise, downtown. We had all this candy, and we're like, oh, we got plenty of candy. We're not even halfway through the time slot, and we're out of candy. I'm like, okay, God, this is awesome. But how are we going to get candy and get back? We hand out all these invite cards. Saw hundreds of people come and interact with us as a church. The little things. And then that cold Halloween night. Oh, we gotta love Halloween. I'll never forget standing out in this little parking lot out here, just on the opposite side of the ball fields. And we have 2 houses over, all these kids, literally like caged animals waiting to get out. Running for it, like they want candy, they want the hot chocolate. We're sitting there, just waiting for them. We can see them, they can see us. And I remember just sitting there going, okay, God, is that a family that He wants to minister to? And they came, they grabbed all the candy, and like with all the candy, I mean like bags, hands, just chucking it there, all the candy. And we're like, we're going to take that off the table now. We're going to just give out candy pieces. And just watching people drive up and down. We had a couple more visitors, but that night honestly was kind of lonely out there. Michael, you stopped by. Rachel Goulash came and she hung out with us for a little bit. We had a couple people from Dayton stop by and say hi. And it was interesting because we just got to talk and communicate with each other for a little bit there. And while people look at that and say, well, that's the tailgates when nobody shows up, the Halloween when nobody really showed up, I look at those and I say, okay, those are just us being faithful and obedient. To walking alongside and saying, God, we're going to do the little things to hopefully accomplish the big things. Now, we look around the room today, and we see that the room's not 155,000 people, right? Which is okay with me. That'd be a lot of people in this little room. But we look around the room, and we can say, okay, God, if we've been faithful, and we've seen your faithfulness through it, what does it really matter? And then December hits, okay? I'm going to just park in December real quick. And I don't know about you, but I'll never forget, the story of Weston and that lady is my favorite story of the whole church so far. Where Weston is just handing out tape of all things. and a lady breaks down and cries. Like, we've all heard the story. We know it. But I don't want us to miss it. The faithfulness of a boy who probably didn't even want to do it anyways, but his parents told him to do it. To just say, okay, well, my parents have to do it, I'm going to do it. We don't know if that will ever transpire into her coming to know Christ. We don't know if she'll ever walk through the doors. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We hope and pray that she comes to know Christ. We want her to come to know Christ. But the faithfulness. See, these little touches we've had in the community. I see God working through those things. I look at the church and I say, okay, we're going to be faithful in the little things. We're going to walk with God in all these little things, whatever He calls us to do. The little baby steps and the slow baby steps of this new building. Like, I'm an anxious person sometimes, like, I would have loved to be like, okay, boom, we're already in the building, we're good, we're having fun, let's roll. But it's good that we're not, because God knows what He's doing. I'm reminded of this. See, I'm reminded that God's providing for all of us. See, I can see God shaping our team for the new year. Some of you all know, some of you guys don't know, but we did a mid-season shift, okay, in our approach. Marin and I have done a mid-season shift here. And as a team, we're now working more and more on this outreach component. Which you're like, wow, church planting, we should. You're right, yeah, we should. But you see, this mindset change that I want us as a church to carry into the new year comes from this passage in Luke 15. Verses 1 through 7 say this: Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathered around to hear Jesus. Tax collectors and sinners. I find it interesting that they separated those two, because a lot of people consider tax collectors to be sinners. A lot of people consider tax collectors to be people who would steal, lie, and all that. Okay, we've talked about that a little bit. But these tax collectors, people look at and they don't like it, they despise them. They're the lowest of the low. They've been, kicked out of their families and all because they've chosen to be tax collectors and sinners. I feel like that's written in there because for me, I'm like, okay, those tax collectors, like, I don't work for the IRS. I mean, I guess I could in today's world, but I don't work for the IRS. But I'm a sinner in need of saving. And that's who Jesus was sitting with. Verse 2, the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. I love that. Because when I feel alone, when I feel isolated, when I feel attacked, I need a person that will sit there and welcome me for who I am. As a church, we strive to be a church who says, come as you are, not come as we are. When we look at this church, my prayer each and every week is, God, may you send people that need to hear your truth and your love. That, God, may you send people who are ready to encounter you. Maybe for the first time, maybe for the 500th time, maybe for the 10,000th time, whatever it may be. May you send us people. But Lord, may you keep them true to themselves. Because I don't want this church to be a holy huddle. I want this church to be a church of broken people. Because we are. We're not perfect. No one is. Welcome sinners and eat with them. Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. I don't know about you, but if you ever picked up a sheep, they're not light. So like that picture, I'm like, yeah, that's strength. Oh, come on, right? Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven. Not the same, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who do not need to repent. I love this passage. I love it for so many reasons. And I love it for our church in 2024. Because our church, we want to welcome sinners. Let's be real here. The church in America has gotten a bad rap. A bad rap of everybody needs to be perfect. They're all, high and tight, shirt, coat, tie, all that. Like, they're all people in the church who are stiff. They can't have no fun. They have to be clean before you walk in the doors. That you can't sin when you walk in the doors. That you have to walk in and you have to be the holy of holies. The church in America has this rap, and we see it here in Cadillac. People who will say, I'm not good enough for church. I've been to church, I was judged. Okay, we want to combat that. We want to say, no, come as you are. We want you. We want you, the dirty, the sinner, the lost. We want those who are hurting, who are broken. We want you. We long for you because we want to love you as Jesus loves us, because we're hurting, we're broken, and we were lost. See, I want to welcome people in who have no hope. Walking with this family who just lost their husband and their father, and being able to sit with them, to be honest with you, at a bar a couple weeks ago. Just sitting and talking with this mother and the daughter about Christ and the love for Christ. Just talking with them about how they may feel no hope, but that because their husband and their dad knew Jesus, he's rejoicing in heaven with Jesus. He's dancing on streets of gold. Who are we to deprive him of that? The no hope feeling that a lot of people in our world feel, especially on the holidays, if they've lost someone, or maybe there's parents who can't provide presents for their kids. That no hope feeling that the homeless have when they try to get ahead. The no hope feeling that a single mom who's trying to make ends meet, who her kids going haywire, walking around the house all the time doing stuff that they shouldn't. This no hope feeling. The people who are trapped in sin and enslaved in sin. You see, Jesus doesn't just welcome them. He doesn't just say, come to me. But he eats with them. He makes it personal. Jesus makes it personal. To sit and to be intimate with them. To listen to them. To make time for them. See, church, I think as Reed Church, Jim and I have talked over and over again. Our goal is not to get 85 families a year. We would love it. Don't get me wrong. It'd be great. But what if we only get one family a year? Can we rejoice in that? What if in that one family of, say, 5 or 6, a kid comes to know Christ? Can we rejoice in that? What if in that one family, a husband who may have been wayward comes and finally is engaged in church and loves the church? Can we rejoice in that? What if it's a wife who maybe despises the church because of her past experiences? But she comes, she feels welcomed and loved, and walks in and says, this is the only church that really, somebody greeted me at the door and said, hey, welcome, with a smiling face, and they gave me free coffee. That's really not free coffee, it's Meyer brand coffee from Akira. Like, right? Like, can we rejoice in that? You see, I look at this passage and I say, if Jesus tells this parable about losing one sheep, and the rejoicing that happens when one comes home, can we rejoice in the one? Because I believe we're called to do that this year in 2024. That we're called to say, okay, God, you've been faithful to us. We're going to be faithful in the one. We're going to be faithful to walk out and seek the one. We're going to be faithful to leave our comfort zone, possibly the 99, and leave, and to go find the one. Miranda and I have chickens, and last night we scared a couple of them, and 2 of them flew up on the roof of the garage. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was kind of like, how am I going to get this chicken down? And then I happened to look at this message, and I'm like, the chicken is so stupid. You left your comfort zone of your coop. All you had to do was walk 2 more steps and you're inside the coop. But you flew the coop. Literally flew the coop onto the roof. We don't have 99 chickens. I'm not going there. Not yet. Crazy chicken lady might be buying more. I don't know. I'm hoping that. But I'm watching this one chicken on the roof. Just thinking, how am I going to get this stupid chicken down? And the thought crossed my mind when we get to 22. A lot easier. Just being honest, right? But I'm watching this chicken kind of walk, and it's looking. And its coop is completely empty. But the coop next to it has all these birds in it. It has 9 birds chilling there. I watch this chicken walking across the roof, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And it flies into the next coop. Now, if you know anything about chickens, they're not very welcoming when a stranger comes in. What was interesting to me, they didn't try to fight this chicken. They let it be. I'm like, interesting. Chickens normally are very territorial and they don't like that, but they just kind of let this chicken hang out. It didn't belong in that coop. It's not as old as those other chickens. But it was interesting because it looked like one other chicken in that coop. And I happen to wonder, did they not pick on that chicken because maybe it looked like them? It didn't look like all of them, but it looked like one of them. See, as our church, what if we have one person? We all have our own stories. And I believe that God needs to use all of our stories independently to build this church. But what if someone comes in who maybe has a past addiction that one of us has shared? What if someone comes in that maybe it's a single mom or a single dad? What if a person comes in that maybe they've grown up in the church their whole life and they've kind of looked for a new church time and time again and haven't found the right church? What if this family comes in that they homeschool their kids and they just need people to wrap around them? What if a family comes in and they're the son of a business owner? What if a family comes in that they just need someone to love on them because the school district can be hard sometimes? Yes, I'm naming things in this room. People in this room. What if God wants to use you to reach the one that He's going to send here? Are we ready for that? Are we ready to go find that one lost sheep? And to bring it back to the shepherd? To bring them back to Christ? See, church, I don't want us to miss the opportunity to be diligent. Verse 4 says this, that he leaves the 99 in the open country to go after the one. He leaves the 99 to find one. We need to be diligent. Week after week, even if people tell us no. I've had a lot of no's this past year. I don't come to church. I hate the church. I don't go to church. I've done that thing. Not for me anymore. Oh, my family, they go to church, but I don't want to go to church. It was interesting to me. I was reminded a couple weeks ago, and I know it's a long sermon, bear with me. But I had a phone call a couple weeks ago from a really good buddy of mine. And forgive me if I start crying, because I truly love this kid with all my heart. I say kid, he's the same age. But this guy named Colin. Colin and I have been friends for over 20 years. Well over 20 years. We grew up in the church together throughout elementary school, all the way through, and then around 8th grade, Colin and his family moved to Chicago. In 8th grade, it was kind of like, okay, whatever, he's not coming with us anymore to church, it is what it is. And then he came back around his end of his sophomore and junior year of church. And I'd see him every Sunday morning. And every Sunday morning we had a Bible study during one of the services, and then youth group was Sunday night. And I'll just walk up to Colin every Sunday morning, hey Colin, how you doing? What you doing tonight? Oh, I'm just chilling at home playing my Xbox. Okay. You should come to youth group. No, I'm not going to, no. 2 years. 2 years. 104 conversations. Took them all over 2 years before I said, I'm tired of you asking. I'm going to shut you up. What time is church? And then never ask me again. Well, I don't like you either, Colin. I just did it because I felt like God told me to. So, okay, fine. It's 6:30. Be in ground zero. I'll see you tonight. And I really didn't like Colin, to be honest with you, because him and I swam against each other. Yes, I was former high school. And he actually beat me a lot, and I didn't like it. I'm very competitive. But in the little faithful acts of just asking him, I was part of the planning team for youth group on Sunday nights. We had planned this night of, we do the 3 songs of worship, pastor would preach, small groups, come back for worship at the end, and then we dismiss and hang out, play basketball after. That was our motto, every Sunday night. Colin walks in the door. Everything's going normal. Second song's getting played. And then third song gets played, and we're standing there, and we can feel the Holy Spirit just moving. It's like, yes, God, thank you. I turn around, and I have my youth pastor, Jeff Eckert, standing next to me, and I look at him, and he's just sobbing his eyes out. I'm like, man, he must have a bomb message. This is going to be awesome. I'll never forget watching him take that mic off, walk over, put it on the booth, sound booth, and just walks up and goes like this to the worship team. And we had a universal signal. Pastor does this. You just keep playing that song, keep moving to another song. And it was a night of worship. And we just worshiped. No message, no small groups, no basketball. I was good at basketball back then, Brandon. But we just worshiped. I'll never forget it because halfway through the night, the opportunity was laid out with my friend John Rivette leading worship, and he said, if anyone in here, I don't know why, but if anyone in here needs to rededicate life to Christ and to turn from their ways of the world, come forward. And I'm standing there looking at Colin across the room, and I'm like, I know he's talking to you, brother. Move. Of course, he didn't see me. And he just starts crying. He walks forward, he repents. Colin has now, for 10 years, been leading ministry full-time. Been pastoring youth for well over 14 years, actually, if I do the math correct. Colin's been ministering to people, and he called me a couple weeks ago to say, Lance, I'm telling our story. The faithfulness of what God did through a stupid kid from Byron Center who wouldn't stop asking me to come to church. The faithfulness of a kid who completely, because his faithfulness, transformed my life to present the gospel that night. See, Colin got to stand in front of a public school and present the gospel to local high school and middle school kids. Now, I don't know about you, but I look back and I say, okay, God, what do you want to do? Who is the Colin of today? The Colin of 2023, 2024 that you're calling us to reach? We don't know what's going to happen when Christ reaches us. And Colin and I have told this story over and over again of how God's faithfulness redeemed him and saved him. And it's not because of me. Please don't hear that. It's because God had something in store, and I was just a willing vessel. The stupid kid who had the blind faith to say, okay, let's do it. And by God, I want to change anything for it. So as we take a look back at this year, we have testimonies of what God's done, what we've seen him do in 2023. I want us to walk into 2024. And I'm not a big, pick a word for the year. But this year, I think 2024 is faithfulness. Faithfulness for us. To be faithful each and every day. To seek the one. Even when it's hard. The word faithfulness appears over 127 times in the Bible. I think it's interesting if it's over 100 words, 100 times in the Bible, kind of a big deal, right? It appears one time in the Bible. Kind of a big deal. It's in the Bible. But God is faithful, and if we are to be representations of God, shouldn't we be faithful? Faithful to him. He's been faithful to us in the past. He's been faithful in the future. We already know that. See, this year I encourage us to be faithful, to find the one lost sheep, and to bring them back to the shepherd. Him or her. Genuine joy. To bring them back. To come to know Christ. Maybe for the first time, maybe for the 100th time. For them to come and experience God. It's interesting that we're walking to 2024 in a new building, new location. And I can't wait until what God's going to do there. I look at this building and I say, is this where God wanted to build our core? Is this where God wanted to build our faithfulness to see if we were all in? To see if we were ready to accept the challenge that's put before us of going after the one. You guys have been faithful week in and week out showing up to hear some 32-year-old guy stand up here and yabber on for 45 minutes now. You've been faithful in that. I think God's going to reward us in 2024. So my question to you is this. Will you be faithful each and every day to find the one that God's called you to do? To find the one lost sheep.